This is a photograph, or this is a film of driving down the south side of Luscombe Field, Nui Dat. Helicopters waiting to go somewhere. Everybody was always waiting for something. Helicopters waiting to go somewhere. And these, I think, are United States helicopters. No, they're RAAF. The engineers were doing a lot of road building at the time. There's a concrete truck, and there was a construction squadron of the Royal Australian Engineers in Vung Tau, and a field squadron of engineers in Nui Dat, who supported the battalions with combat engineers. We call them combat engineers now, but they weren't called that then. They were called splinter groups of engineers that went out with the rifle companies to assist on patrol. Now we're heading... Some of these films are a bit out of order. I think this might be on Route 15 between Vung Tau and Saigon, judging by the state of the road. And passing us is a United States convoy. Although I note there's the odd Australian truck in amongst it. There's a massive amount of road transport, military road transport at the time to keep the force of that size going. And there's a statue, it looks like. Buddhist, do you think? I took a road trip from Nui Dat to Saigon, having been associated with that camp on the left. I think might have been part of the Philippine army force that was there in Vietnam. During the whole time I was in Vietnam, I'd always wondered what it would be like to drive to Saigon up the Black Route 15, the main road, which in the early days was patrolled by the Viet Cong. So when the opportunity presented itself and I could get away from 1AOU and leave it in the good hands of my second-in-command, Captain Brian Best, I took my driver and Land Rover and we drove from Nui Dat up to Saigon along Route 15 initially, and then turned left towards Saigon on Route 1. And these pictures show some of the traffic on that trip. You'll note the number of small Renault cars which were used extensively as taxis. Those are 2 Australian trucks. Another one, they're tip trucks. And going through rubber plantation here. And the tuk-tuks were ubiquitous, as were the kids. We're now going, or beginning to go past the giant military complex of Ben Hoa and Long Binh to the east of Saigon. These were two absolutely massive United States bases. 173rd Airborne Brigade was based at Ben Hoa, and the Australian Task Force was under the operational command of the 173rd Airborne Brigade, which was commanded by Brigadier General Burton, whose wife actually was an Australian. And Brigadier Burton was a very good friend of the Australian Task Force. And later on, when I became the Senior Operations Officer for the Task Force, he and I had lots of conversations, and he was always ready to help in any way possible, although we mostly didn't really need help. The Americans were always disappointed, really, that the Australian Task Force couldn't, for political reasons, be used in an area that was more active in terms of the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. I've got a feeling that turn there was the turn off Route 15 onto Route 1 on the way to Saigon. And here you can hear the bases are closer to the road, and you can see some of the fortifications and buildings. And there's just one bit of this film which is duplicated, but not a lot of it. At one stage during Operation Overlord in June 1971, we had a United States Army battalion working in cooperation with us on that operation, and I must say they appeared to me to be extremely professional. A lot of the stories you got about the United States Army were from reporters who didn't get much further forward than the big bases, where if you were going to have a bit of dope smoking, etc., that was the place for it. But from what I could see, the actual battalions themselves were pretty professional. Also, of course, the Americans were up against massively bigger forces than we were. Still going past the Long Binh base. Going west to Saigon. If the Viet Cong had attempted to do any attacks in this area, they were more likely to get a run over by the traffic than anything else. I've never seen so much traffic in my life. Just a little bit later on as we get closer to Saigon. And I notice, looking at Google Earth, that the same bridge that we go over into Saigon is still doing duty, and at about the it doesn't appear to have been extended, but there appears to be another bridge a bit further to the north across the Saigon River. So now the road has developed into a 4-lane road. Once again, military transport mixed up with the little tuk-tuks. A monument to somebody, the Vietnamese soldier perhaps. Probably when global warming started there. And here we're being followed by an Australian truck, probably engineers by the look of them, invariably dishevelled, but invariably doing important jobs. More of these earth-carrying trucks. I don't know what they're about. This was all a great revelation to me at the time because down in Phuoc Tuy province we saw absolutely nothing on this scale. Of course, all our vehicles were right-hand drive, and we were driving on the right in Vietnam, but you soon got used to that. In fact, the heavier vehicles in the Australian Force were a mixture of right-hand and left-hand drive. And this is the bridge over the Saigon River to the east of the city. Northeast of the city, I suppose. And you can see it's heavily protected. And there's part of the port. The main container port for Saigon now is further down the river towards Vung Tau at I can't remember the name of the port now, but it's not far up the river from Vung Tau. Military truck full of families, it looks like. And you can see ahead the blue and white Renault taxi. And that on the right is the Free World military headquarters. the headquarters of all the nations that were supporting the United States effort in Vietnam. And so we arrived there. And I can't particularly remember what happened on that particular trip to Saigon.